Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of The Gray Area. I am Mr. Bennett, joined as always by my partner in crime, Grooming and Reviews 101, aka
This is Sparta!
the Ghost of Sparta, aka Peter, aka Y'all saw my brother. What's going on?
What's going on, Paul? How are you tonight, man?
We're doing great, doing great. Thank you, everybody, for coming on and joining us tonight. As you see scrolling at the bottom of our screens, you'll see our Cash App. So, again, we appreciate any support that you give us for the show. But more importantly than that, we ask that you support the network, the Black Man Unfiltered Network. Again, we have set, content 7 days a week, and there's a variety of different shows to choose from. So we ask that, if anything, drop a super chat or cash, to the network. Support us so we can continue to grow this platform. But tonight, we have a very special guest in the building tonight. I've heard so much about this man through Peter since we've been together. He has nothing but glowing things to say about him. He has had an incredible journey, certainly in his life to be here, and certainly looking forward to having his perspective. I mean, obviously, me and Peter, we talk about a host of subjects. Again, finding the gray area between black and white. Knowing that things are a lot more complex than black and white sometimes. So, again, we get an opportunity to see someone who's seen probably more than both of us put together. So, certainly we're glad to have Brother CQ with us tonight. Again, it is an honor to meet you, and I'm looking forward to a positive conversation. But since you're besties with grooming, you can certainly do the formal introductions. But I just wanted to sort of set it off.
So, this guy we're looking at right now, he is the sweetest guy I ever know. One of the best person who would take the shirt off his back. He has gone through hell and back. He's a husband. He's a father. He is one of the greats. I am lucky to call him my best friend and a brother. So I want to give everybody one applause to my best friend, CQ. So,
hey guys.
Hey.
Oh, you want to fire first shots? That's all right.
Well, again, so again, in addition to not only his life, which we're going to get into tonight, but he also has his own podcast. He has his own show where he talks about pop culture warrior. So I'm going to allow you to just to plug your channel and just talk about how they came together. I mean, me and grooming, we also, is weird, as different as we are, we have a lot in common. We're kind of geeks in a lot of ways. We like a lot of the same things, into a lot of the same stuff. So, in fact, we have a show. Grooming has a show on Friday nights called Saturday nights called The Hangout. We talk about all kinds of stuff. So we just talked about Cobra Kai series last night, and we've talked about everything from Star Wars to 80s music. You got the vintage 1984 shirt on, one of my favorite years of all time. And so, the 80s was like the explosion of everything from video games to music videos to whatever. So I am an 80s kid, born in 69. But, that's my era, or whatnot. But, you certainly bring a lot to the table. So tell us a little bit about your channel and how'd you come up with it and what made you decide to put it together?
Okay. Man, I'm terrible at self-promotion. I mean, I know, but the show's called Pop Culture Warrior. It's Tuesday nights live, 8 p.m. Eastern. Usually do 2 to 3 hours. First hour is usually headlines, what's going on in the world of pop culture, movies, TV, video games, collectibles, etc. And then as many nights as I can, the second hour will usually be interviews with people from around the entertainment industry. So actors, directors, comedians, voice actors, musicians, magicians, whatever I can get my hands on. And we've been really fortunate, really blessed to have some truly incredible guests that have become friends, really. And then on the off days that I don't have a guest, then, we do giveaways, we do call-in shows, we'll play video games with the audience. We'll play like a Jackbox party game, a trivia game.
Wow.
And
nice.
People can play live with us and try to take the crown of ultimate trivia champion over here. So yeah, it's a great show. It's been going on 5 years, I think we're about to hit, and funny enough, the first 2 years we were actually nominated for a Best in Entertainment Podcast Award.
Oh, wonderful.
So we were nominated. Unfortunately, didn't win, but that's okay. It's politics, man. It's all the.
It's coming. Your day is coming.
It's all an inside game. but yeah, we've been very fortunate. I'm one show of, just like you guys are here on the network. I'm on the WTF Nation Radio Network, which is just kind of like the voice of the military. We have a number of shows, from sports to news to kind of just hangouts. So it's a really great group of people. I'm very honored and proud to be a part of. It's kind of an all veteran, staff, or an all veteran audience, but we don't, with lots of non-veterans as well, lots of non-military that tune in and hang out with us as well. So it's awesome. It's a good time.
Yeah, but it's something for everybody, and I think you certainly fill a niche, especially for certainly for those in the military when you got a tough job or whatnot. Sometimes it's just good just to break away and just talk about either things that you grew up on or things that you're really into and whatnot. There's so much good in the world a lot of times. And again, this especially when a political year right now, a lot of people get depressed over stuff or whatever. So hey, sometimes it's just good to just break away. Let's just just shoot a fat and just have a good time. So so certainly I can't tell you how much channels like yours are needed in this space when people are just looking to connect and just have good vibes with people. And I think that's one of the things we try to have on the show as well.
For CQ, because he forgot to mention one thing about himself also. He's also does stand up a little bit. And he's actually,
is that right?
He's the one of few people who makes me fucking crack up laughing. And he won't admit it. He's pretty good, actually. Like he's getting his own HBO special pretty soon. Just wait.
All right. So
2024. Mark my words. You're gonna get it.
Well, you just sparked the question for me then. So okay, so stand up comedy. Okay, from what I understand, that is hard. It's not something that can be taught. I know guys who've studied improv or whatnot. It's not the same thing. So I got to ask you, your Mount Rushmore of comedians. You got to pick 4, but you're either your major influences or whatever, or the guys who just made you laugh the most or whatever. So again, who goes up on that Mount Rushmore of stand-up comedians?
And that's a question a lot of the comedians I used to hang out with, we used to kind of go back and forth with, and it's very hard because there are legends upon legends. There are people that stand head and shoulders, your Richard Pryors and, Eddie Murphy back when he was doing comedy. And like, there are people that are just so good. I know, I guess because I was such a fan of comedy and I was so in the weeds of it. There's a lot of guys that I think aren't as mainstream. People named Mitch Hedberg's not, he's mainstream within comedians, but maybe not in the mainstream sense. He also died young. But I mean, there's so many good ones. But right now, I can tell you the people that I love to watch the most: Tom Segura, Nate Bargatze. Who else? I've been really fortunate that I've gotten to, in my little group here in the DC kind of metro area, I've gotten to spend time with a lot of really great comedians, local comedians. So some of the people that make me laugh the hardest are someone who's never had a special or has never been a touring comedian. But there's a great network of military veteran comedians. How I kind of got into it is there's a program for military veterans and military members to learn stand-up comedy, and it's just a great community. And out of that, some of the most funny people I've ever seen and met have come out of that program, and they'll be famous one day. But nobody knows it yet.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about that, because I know guys like George Carlin, for example. Now it's interesting. George Carlin rarely made me laugh, but he made me think.
Makes you think.
I mean, like sometimes like comedians, you say, "Ha ha, oh that's funny" or whatever. But Carlin was like, he would do like a mind bend on you. He's like, man, that makes, I never thought about that. So you would laugh out of like the irony of what he's saying, not necessarily because it was funny per se. It wasn't like slapstick or anything like that. But he like, you went to him, it was like you were going to college, like university. Like you had that wacky university professor who was sort of non-conventional in his thinking or whatever. And I remember I had some of those guys back in college. I was like, wow, these guys are really deep. So I would listen for the enlightenment more so than the entertainment per se. But I would still put him up there with the goats, because he just had a different way of looking at the world. But and especially when you look at how the world's running today, a lot of stuff he said was kind of prophetic at the same time. So
And if you think about like good comedians, like I know one me and CQ actually met, not together separately. Brent Williams, that little guy, he's hilarious. Most perverted jokes you ever heard in your life,
right,
but
right.
that's why he makes them funny. With me personally, I can speak, and CQ knows it, and you know this too, Paul. Where our conversation, like I have a hard time laughing sometimes about the trauma I has been through. CQ, Brett Williams, and Fluffy. Those are the three people I can name off my head. And Vasily, I played him on one of our shows. His skets. Those four guys, like I say, it makes me crack up. I almost pissed myself a couple times laughing so hard.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I think the thing about comedy also, it's almost like hip hop to a degree. Like you have different genres of it. You got your East Coast, you got your West Coast, you got your Southern, you got your your hardcore, you got your soft, you got your. So again, I think a lot of it is depending on sort of what you may need at that particular time. So it's like, you know what, I just want some really off color stuff, so you can see like the dark stuff, or you just want to you just want to have a good time and whatnot as well. So I think there's something for everybody out there. But yeah, so again, we got your channel. So we dropped it in the chat. So again, everybody definitely check out CQ's channel, Pop Culture Warrior channel. And so he's got some great content out there. And from what I'm seeing of it, man, you put the work in. I mean, because that's the one thing. Now again, I enjoy being a co-host. Everyone's like, when are you going to launch yours? Like, I have a channel. I haven't really gone headlong into it yet. But I enjoy certainly co-hosting shows. I've guest hosted shows when I love being the substitute teacher. But to stand out there and to put out content week after week and keep that going for you guys are able to do it, salute. But he's definitely putting the work in. So definitely to check out, not only that, check out his website, popculturewarrior.com. His link tree has always been posted there as well. So check him out. He has a lot of great content there. But CQ, I want to turn it over to you. So let's get into the man. And how do we get here? Where did it start? And kind of how did you get here? So grooming, I'll turn it over to you since you guys have the relationship, and I'll like double dutch. I'll get in when I fit in. So I'm
guys gonna pull one of his own moves from his own channel. So, Mr. CQ, what kind of relationship do you have with the military?
Oh yeah.
He told me about this last night. He's like he was kind of like, watch this. All right, I'm gonna say. I was like, where's this going? So he's got me curious now too.
Look at his face. That's what I'm gonna say.
So I did serve in the Army. There you go. Answered the question. Now, the long and short of it is, I guess to understand kind of my background is to understand that I was born and raised in New York City. I was a ghetto kid, Upper East Side, Spanish Harlem, teenage mom, dad not in the picture, so very underprivileged hood as you can get. And bounced from school to school, public school to school. And I was a senior in high school when 9/11 happened. So I remember, obviously, September 11th. That was second week of senior year. And so I had no idea what I was going to do post high school, but that happened. And it really, I had never even thought of the military before that day. And then obviously there was such a big push for, patriotism and country and united. And as personal as 9/11 felt for everyone here in America, those of us in New York City, it felt very personal, very, very personal. This is not just a black eye on our country, but this is a direct attack to my home. Yeah. And so within weeks, I just made the decision that I was going to join the military. And so I entered what's called the delayed entry program. So it's crazy to think today, but there was such a push for people to join the military that it wasn't just, sign up and a couple months later you're in. There was such a backlog of trying to get people in. There were so many people, an influx of so many people. You have to basically wait for an opening to go in.
Wow.
And so it took almost, 9 months, 10. I graduated high school, and then what should have been just right into the summer going in, it wasn't until the following January that I was finally able to get into the military. So it was 2002, January of 2003 is when I actually finally entered. I joined the infantry because I thought, the infantry is what we call the tip of the spear. They are the frontline fighter. They are the ones. And my thought at that day was, if there's anyone going to be getting some, it's going to be the infantry guys, and I wanted to get some. And so I joined infantry. I also joined airborne. So I went and I did basic training in Fort Benning, Georgia, now called Fort Liberty, I think. Back in the day, it was Fort Benning. Did my infantry there, did my airborne school there, and then immediately shipped out to Italy. I got stationed in Italy, of all places. So, you know, for a New York City street rat, who I'd never really left the city, to then, you know, I'm training in Georgia in the boonies in the woods in Georgia. To next thing I know, I'm in Italy. There's a lot of change in a couple weeks, really. And then within 3 weeks of me getting to Italy, I was on a plane and jumping into Iraq, into a combat zone. I just barely turned 19. And I was jumping into a combat zone, an active combat zone. And I was part of the initial invasion in 2003 to Iraq. I was there. We were told we were going to be there for 3 weeks. We were the invading force. We were going to establish a ground perimeter, establish a base, let the Air Force fly planes in, build a base, and then we're out. I was there for 15 months.
Wow.
And so, you know, got to see the transition of when we first got there. We were actually fighting Iraqi army. Didn't last long. They didn't last long. And then it became more of that guerrilla warfare with just kind of pockets of insurgents. Made it through 15 months of that. Back to Italy. And literally coming, you know, we're like, oh my God, we survived. You know, we lost some guys and we've been through so much shit. And we're like, oh my God, we're so happy to be home. Literally, we're on the flight. We get on the bus because we flew into Aviano, which is in Italy. Got on a bus that was going to take us back to our base. And they go, hey, just so you know, we've already got the orders. We're going to Afghanistan next year. So we're like, oh, great. Like, we barely recovered. Not even some of our families yet, and we already knew we were going to be getting redeployed. So then a year of training in Germany, Hungary, Lithuania, all over the place, and then ended up in Afghanistan. And 6 months into my 1-year tour in Afghanistan, I was shot multiple times during combat operations, and ended up being medically evacuated, and ended up in the hospital here in the state, back in the States. And a lot more to it. So,
Mike, can you walk us through what happened that day exactly, if you feel comfortable?
Sure. Yeah. Oh, I'm an open book, man. You can ask me anything. Man, I don't want to take up all the time. So the
this is about you.
The short. Well, I mean, I want us to be able to cover lots of other things, because I could tell this story over 6 hours, but the short version of the story is we were in Afghanistan. We were on the border of Pakistan, the Pakistan-Afghanistan border, a little place called Paktika, and we had been told that a lot of the time the Al-Qaeda were the big thing. A lot of the Al-Qaeda were kind of bouncing back and forth, Afghanistan and Pakistan, and in our area, and they were recruiting and whatnots. And so we had been tasked with a lot of different things, but this specific day we were tasked with capturing a guy who would have basically been like Osama bin Laden's right-hand man.
Gotcha.
And so there was a cardinal mistake made, and that is, in the military tell you, you never take the same route going out, coming back. You always vary your routes, you vary your times, you vary your missions. You don't do the same thing, because once the enemy can get onto what you're doing, you're going to pay for it.
Right.
But it was not made at our, decisions were made at our level.
Yeah. Right.
So again, the short of it is, through intel and things, we were finding where this guy kept popping up. And so we would do what's called a QRF, a quick reaction force, jump on a helicopter, get in there and try to capture him. But we were always getting there just as he left. We just missed him.
Right.
So we did this like 4 or 5 days in a row. Again, you should never do the same thing multiple times.
Right.
Apparently he caught on to it. And so they set a trap for us. And basically, when we got the next call, we hit the ground and they had an ambush waiting. And so we exited the aircraft, and one of my guys, I was a team leader at the time, and one of my guys, I didn't realize it, but as he exited the craft, I saw him kind of fall, and then I saw him kind of grabbing his leg, and I could see he's screaming, but it's very loud. You can't hear anything. And so when the chopper pulled away, I could hear him screaming, I'm hit. And I could hear that, of gunfire. And so I was kind of behind this rock, and basically he was out in the open laying there because he had been hit twice in the leg. And I could see the little like puffs of dirt bouncing around him.
Yeah.
Which tells me he's still being shot at. And so, and I hate telling this only because it sounds way more heroic than it really is meant to sound. And it's just, this is what we just do what we're trained to do.
Right.
And so I sprinted out into the open, which is a bad idea, and grabbed him. We have these little pull collars on the back of our armor. As I just grabbed him and I started dragging him back because I figured, all right, over there, I wasn't getting shot at. So that's got to be safe. But in the process of dragging him, I was shot first in the bicep. I was shot in my bicep. And I can only piece this together. I mean, it took me months to really piece it together. And it's because everything's happening so fast. And I just remember, like, as I was dragging him, he suddenly it felt like he got heavier. And I, like, again, it's all a blur and all a jumble in your head. But like, I thought, oh my God, maybe like his satchel or something got stuck on like a root or a rock, or I just knew I couldn't pull him anymore.
Right.
And I remember looking down, I didn't see anything. It looked pretty smooth. And so I just like threw my whole body into pulling harder, and I got him moving again. I didn't realize that I'd been shot in the bicep, which had shattered the bone and disconnected basically all the muscle and everything in my arm. And so I had basically, like, I had my weapon and I was slung across. So I kind of just tossed my weapon aside and it slung behind my back, hooked my other arm, and just pulled with both.
Right.
And got him going again. And that's when I took a round through my shoulder, which actually, because of the angle is that, it actually kind of came like up and was headed to my neck, but hit my clavicle and redirected and came out my back. And again, the only reason I know is because all of a sudden he got way heavier.
Heavy again.
It's because I had completely severed my entire shoulder from my body. And so at this point, I'm just pulling with two dead arms, but your brain is just saying that's safe, go there. And so I dragged him, I got him into cover, still hadn't realized I'd been shot. I just remember I put him down. I said, stay down. And as a team leader, I'm like, all right, I know my guys are, they were spread out and I could hear them shooting and making call outs. So in my head, I'm like, all right, I'm going to assess the situation. We'll call it in. We'll make whatever. We do the things we have to do. And I went to pick up my weapon because it has like a, scope and allows me to see. And my arms were like noodles. And like they were just swinging. And I'm like, my brain's saying, pick up your rifle, look through the scope. And I just was like slapping at it. And my brain couldn't compute fast enough because like I know I'm not in like combat shock, because at this point we've been in hundreds of firefights. And like this is second nature. We know what to do. And so I couldn't figure out like, why is my arms not suddenly doing what I'm telling you to? Now, bear in mind, I'm standing out in the open going like, what the hell is going on? And I basically took 2 rounds in the chest. I took one would have hit me in the heart and one in the lower abdomen had I not been wearing the body armor. Now, the body armor did stop the penetration of the bullets, but the impact ended up shattering like 4 or 5 of my ribs, collapsing my lung, and then obviously causing massive internal damage. And it's like getting hit by a car. You're just suddenly blown off your feet. And so I landed on my back. I couldn't breathe because it felt like there was an elephant sitting in my chest, but as I had collapsed the lung.
Mhm.
And so like I'm like my brain's screaming at me like get up, get up, get up, get up, get up. And an explosion went off, and there was a whole bunch of things happening. And I remember I could hear like that zip as bullets are whizzing by me,
Mhm.
and like again the dirt just kind of like poof, it makes this weird sound as it pops up, and so I just kind of rolled because my body was kind of at an angle. I couldn't. My body was starting to shut down. It was starting to go into shock, and it was starting to shut down. And so I just remember thinking like roll downhill, and I just kind of rolled my body as far as it would go, and eventually kind of got stuck. And I was trying to make call outs, but I'm like, I can't see anything. I don't know where anything is. And luckily, one of my teammates saw that I was down, and he came running over to me, and he starts like checking me and moving things. And he's like, this is a good friend of mine, Mexican dude, oh, jumped over the border Mexican kind of dude.
Mm.
Brown, dark brown. We've been sitting in the sun for 6 months, dark brown. And when he looked down at me and I looked up in his eyes, I saw like all the color drain out of his face. And he was about as white as Pete there. And I was like, oh, that's not good. And I'm like, and I had taken, we call it a CLS, which is combat lifesaver.
Mhm.
You're not a medic. I was not a medic, but you learn on the emergency things to keep someone alive until a medic could get to them.
Right. Mhm.
So like in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm already running through the checklist, and I'm like, okay, I can't move my feet. So I'm thinking, shit, man, did I get shot in the spine? Am I paralyzed? So in my head, I'm screaming like, move your toes, move your toes, move your toes. And I could feel heat leaving my body. It's hard to explain,
Mhm.
but I was like, oh God, I think I'm bleeding out. And so I'm telling him, hey man, you gotta, because I know entry wounds very small, exit wounds very big.
Right.
And so I'm like, man, you gotta see if I'm bleeding out. And he's like, dude, there's blood everywhere. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, look for the main stuff. I'm like, don't worry about the arms, don't worry about the legs. Like, you gotta check chest. Like that's where you're gonna die. You're gonna die from
Right.
a lot of internal stuff.
Got it.
And so he's like patting me down, and he's checking me. He's like, I don't know. And at this point, the best way I can describe it is it's like I was laying on a rock, like a really big rock, and it was digging into my shoulder. And I'm like, it's like something's wrong with my shoulder. I was like, you got to check my shoulder. It doesn't feel right. And he slid his hand into my uniform and immediately pulled it out. And it was just, it looked like he dipped his hand in a bucket of paint.
Yeah.
And it was red. And he's like, there's a hole. And I'm like, okay, like how big? And he just kind of went like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, well, shit. I was like, we gotta pack that. You gotta pack that right now. Cause I literally felt like a battery that was draining. And he pulled my shirt back, and we had we call it Curlex. It was this like cotton wadding, and normally you would unwrap it and wrap it around someone. And I was like, pop it open, shove the whole thing.
Yeah.
When he did that, that was the first pain I felt. It was excruciating. It's like a barbed wire bat being shoved through your body kind of pain.
So Mike, would you think your adrenaline was kicking in? That's why you didn't feel anything at that point?
I was just thinking that also. So you got literally a hole in your back and your arm, all these wounds. You're not feeling anything. You're kind of one on autopilot. But then when he puts the gauze or whatever in, that's when you feel pain for the first time.
Yeah. A lot of it, adrenaline, man. Adrenaline's a powerful drug, man. You hear these stories about like the mother that picks up the car off the baby, and like, cause that adrenaline will just give you superhuman strengths and abilities.
Yeah.
I didn't feel any of it. As I'm playing it over and over and over in my head, I kind of remember like, as I was, like running and like feeling like a zip, like it was like the arm just spasmed back, but like, again, everything's happening so fast, just nothing resonates. And it wasn't until like I knew when I was laying on the ground before he had shoved it in there, like I knew I was hurt. Like I knew, like I'm thinking like, shit, I must be paralyzed, because I didn't feel anything. So I'm like, oh my God, I must be hitting the spine and I'm paralyzed. But when he shoved that in there, I felt it. I was like, okay, I'm definitely not. I feel that, and it hurt like a mother. And like as he was doing that and trying to like put tourniquets on my arms. Like I could start to move my feet. So I'm like, oh shit, like, okay, I can move my feet. So I'm not paralyzed. And, it's so funny because, he was what we call E3, is like a low level private, PFC, a private first class. And I just remember our platoon sergeant, who's like an E9, like boss, happy to be with us. And he's yelling, "Hey, Sergeant Nathan, get those." Can I curse on here? Am I allowed to curse on here? I don't know.
Whatever you want.
I mean,
But you asking that with grooming on the show?
You really gonna ask me? Old people, you forget who the fuck you're talking to?
So he's like, "Sergeant Nathan, get those fucking birds back in here." And the platoon sergeant, E3 would never talk to an E9 like that. We can't bring the birds in. It's too hot. And he goes, "You get those fucking birds back in here now, or CQ's gonna die." And I'm just laying there going like, "Oh, that's not good." Like, and it's funny the things that you remember, because I my mind jumps back to months and months and months prior. I'm in my little combat lifesaver class, and they're like, "The first thing we do is always reassure the patient. You're gonna be okay. We've got you." Like, that's the first thing you do, is reassure the patient. Because honestly, if I'm bleeding out, the worst thing I can do is panic, and my heart beats faster and I bleed out faster. So you really want to reassure the patient. So I swear to God, I remember thinking like, you suck at this. Like, as I'm dying, I'm like, you suck. And but to his credit, he's like, "You get those fucking birds back in here now." And so they called him in. But again, like he said, the area was too hot. So we were kind of like on a mountaintop. So they ended up having to land much lower on the mountain. And I remember at this point, my head was kind of like uphill. My feet were downhill. So I could lift my head and look downhill. And I remember, Paredes was the guy's name. He's like, "Hey, man, the birds are coming. We're going to get you out of here. You're going to be okay." And I was like, "Oh, now he says I'm going to be okay." Sure. Okay. And I remember he's like, "Okay, they're coming. And I remember I could see them like way down at the base. And they looked like this big, giant helicopters that looked, and I'm like, wow, that is far. And we had this thing called a skidco, which is basically like, if you think like those military stretchers, right? With the two poles. Yeah. Skid is basically just the fabric. There's no poles, because in our genius minds, we're like, those poles are big and heavy and we have to carry them around. Like, if worst case, we'll just use like twigs or something. Right. So this guy's unrolling the skidco next to me, which is basically just a mesh net. Right. And he's like, "Hey, we're going to roll you onto this. We're going to drag you down the hill." And I'm like, "Bro, you cannot drag me down this hill." And he goes, no, we're going to drag you. It's not safe. Because this still a gunfight. It's still a firefight. Explosions and rockets and guns. And he's like, "No, we gotta keep you low. We're going to drag you." I said, "Dude, I will die before you can drag me down this mountain. I will die before we get there." And he's like, "Well, we got to get you to," and I said, "Pick me up. We're going to run." And he's like, "No, man, no." Because at this point, they had stripped off my armor. They had stripped off my helmet. I'm as exposed as humanly possible. And I'm like, "No, man." I said, "I'm not, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die on my feet running." And they, to their credit, he called another guy over. He said, "Come on, help me get him up." And they picked me up. They put one arm over one guy, the other arm over the other guy. And we just hauled ass. And literally, I could hear my guys like, "Covering fire." So they're covering us as we're running down. And we ran down. And the humorous, I can find the humor in this now, is as we're running down the hill, the helicopter didn't land, because the helicopters can't land on a pitched surface. Right. All over. Right. So it's hovering at about 6 feet. And I remember we're running. And as it's getting closer and closer, I'm realizing, it's higher and higher off the ground. And I'm thinking, well, shit, my arms don't work. How am I going to climb in? And as if without skipping a beat, we got to it. And these guys just, one hand on my ass, one hand on my shoulder, and they threw me like a lawn dart. Wow. I'm flying through the air. And I just remember, like, as I'm flying, I'm like, I can't brace. I can't put my hands up to protect myself. So I just boom, land right on the steel floor of this helicopter, just right on my face.
with
Just
the collapsed lung.
with a collapsed lung, bleeding out. And
I
I'm just
would,
like this.
how the hell they picked up your fat ass and throw you up there? That's my
I
question.
mean, again, adrenaline. First of all, back then I wasn't as heavy as I am now, but
You're in pretty good shape now. You only weigh like 350, right?
no, not even close. But adrenaline will do things, man. And they got me on there, and thank God we had a really good medic on the flight. And he took one look at me, and I remember he looked at the pilot. He's like, "Fucking go!" And they just tore out of there. And he just starts stripping me naked on this metal floor. Remember, we're in the mountains. We're like 14, 15,000 feet. It's freezing cold as it is. I think it was, oh no, it was like September. No, it was August. It was August. So it was hot. But like the thing was going so fast that just the wind, I was freezing.
Mhm.
And I kept thinking to myself, like, because now it's all settling in. Like now I'm feeling everything and it hurts bad.
Yeah.
So my brain is screaming, like, and I'm trying to yell to the guy. God bless him. He's working to save my life. He's putting in IVs, he's putting on tourniquets, he's patching things. And all I can think is I'm screaming at him, morphine, morphine. And he's just ignoring me, just working away, trying to save my life. God bless him, doing the right thing. And so I start like a tantrum. I start just kicking because I can't move my arms or anything. I'm just kicking. And he finally looks at me like, what the fuck do you want? And I go, because again, very loud. I'm like, morphine. And he's like, and he like reaches into the bag. He sticks me. He's like, happy? And it goes back to work. And then I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, we're good. We're good now. Yeah. And I stayed, surprisingly, I stayed conscious the whole ride.
Wow.
Got back to the small base that we were at, this little base called Organy, little mud base with like sand walls. And there was literally like a mud hut emergency care unit. Like it was the flight line, traumatic, whatever. So literally we land, they grab me and off the thing and straight in. And I'll never forget because like they lay me on the thing. And at least in my mind, I was thinking like, okay, at least I'm in safety. Because, the worst way I can imagine dying is, you look at things like Lone Survivor and stuff where they're like, you're out there, you're captured by the enemy. You don't want to go out that way. You'd rather eat a bullet. Yeah. And so like, I was kind of okay. Like if I die now, at least I know I'm not going to end up on some Haji video, decapitator nonsense.
Yeah.
Like I'm with, even if I die, at least my body's going home.
Gotcha.
And so I was kind of really at peace at this point. Plus the morphine is just fucking good. And so they laid me on the bed. And as I said, never forget, because a buddy of mine was one of the medics. And I'm laying there and they're scrambling and they're, doing all this, getting stuff ready. And they're literally about to put the mask on to knock me out. And I remember looking at my buddy and I'm like, how bad is it? And this is not what you want to see. Like, as he's putting the mask on, he's like, and I'm like, no. He puts the mask on, and I'm out. And so they kept me induced for about 3 days. When I finally came to, I was in a whole different base in the main base in Afghanistan called Bagram. And I woke up and there was a doctor there, and he's like, hey, don't try to talk. You're intubated. Like you're badly damaged and this, that. We're just waiting for a ride to get you out of here. And so like a day later, I was on a flight to Germany, to Landstuhl, which is the regional medical center in Europe. I was there for like 4 or 5 days. And like, they basically told me, they're like, there's nothing we can do for you here. You are way too badly damaged. We're sending you back to the States. And so from there, I took a flight back to the States. Ended up in Walter Reed Army Medical Center in DC.
Yep.
And I spent the next 2 years of my life recovering at Walter Reed.
Wow.
I had 44 operations. I died twice. I actually died twice. They had to bring me back. And then eventually I was medically retired in September of 2007. I was medically retired from the Army.
So basically, all these events happen over a 4-year period. basically.
Yeah.
From the time you got in 2003 is when you finally get in, and by 2007 you're kind of sort of on the road to recovery from that. Shout out to the Money Green Beans thing again. Thanks for coming through.
The only question I got for you, CQ, is
go
I
ahead.
know the answer to it, but I know you say you got shot in the shoulder, the biceps, and all that stuff. But your hand, how did that happen? What part of that did you?
Oh yeah. So there's the prevailing theory, and then there's the kind of alternate theory, because we were under heavy fire as well as they were throwing grenades and firing rockets at us. So the prevailing theory, just based on the evidence, because again, it's really hard to put all the pieces back together. When I had my hands on my rifle, when they found my weapon, the side of it had been sheared off.
Mm-hmm.
So it was either a bullet had hit it and kind of redirected and sheared it off, which could have taken my finger, or kind of the prevailing theory is that it was a grenade or one of the rockets had blown up and the shrapnel had taken kind of the side of that and my finger with it.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I'm more inclined to think it was shrapnel because although it looks like I'm just missing my middle finger, these two fingers aside of it were both like barely hanging on. They had to be reattached. So they were giant chunks blown out of both the fingers.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's wild, man. I look back, like I have pictures of like for evidence reasons, they took pictures of like my uniform and like the glove I was wearing and my body armor and all that stuff, and you see the bullet holes in it and the blood stains on it, and it's crazy. It's crazy when you look back at it.
And be honest, I seen on your Facebook, and I see how bad they are. I'm like, when I first met you, I was like, holy shit, you went through fucking hell and back. And that's not being lately. I'm being serious.
Mm-hmm.
But I know we have talked about it in the past. But your mental health, when you were in a stage and going through surgery after surgery after surgery, how was your mental health back at the time?
That's a great question. At that time, this was still very early in our 20-year war, Middle East war.
Mm-hmm.
Mental health wasn't given as much attention as it is now. PTSD was kind of the thing whispered about. Nobody really said it openly.
Were they calling it PTSD then? Or were they still calling it? What do you call it? Like not shell shocked or
was a big thing.
Yeah.
There was a couple. There's a couple
1,000-yard stairs and things like that. Yeah.
PTSD was something talked about, but like I remember even like coming back from Iraq where they're like, "Hey, you have to go through the screening," and literally they would coach us through it. They were like, "Okay, make sure you answer no to every other question, or every question. Otherwise, you're gonna end up on a hold, and you want to go back to your families, right?" So like you'd be like, did you see any disturbing images? No. Like, dude, I saw people carved up and burned and things, but no, nothing disturbing. Were you near depleted uranium like that? We carried that shit in our trucks. Nope. And so early on it was really kind of pushed aside and dismissed, and don't get me wrong, rightfully so, the focus was my physical health. Obviously I was really bad, really bad. In fact, my first prognosis, the army doctors, they don't play, they don't joke, no bedside manner. They tell you like it is. They're blunt. And so I go, "Hey, doc, how bad is it?" And he goes, "Well," and he looks at my chart. "There's an 80% chance you're going to lose one of your arms at the shoulder and a 60% chance you're going to lose both arms at the shoulder." So I was like, "Well, okay." And he was like, "Okay, well, what do I do?" And he's like, "How well do you heal?" And he's like, "It really boils down to how well." And I'm like, at that point, I'd never broken a bone in my life.
Right.
And he's like, "Well, we'll do what we can and hope for the best." And got lucky a few times and had a few setbacks, but I'm here. But yeah, for the mental health part of it, I've said this very often, and I say this a lot, is that even though the physical healing took 2 years, and it continued on, honestly, afterwards. I still go to physical therapy and things like that just to help. But the majority of the physical care was over the 2 years. the mental health journey has been lifelong.
Yeah.
It's easy to say this hurts and I can get a scan done and we can see what's wrong and we know how to fix it and here's
Right.
medicine to fix it.
Right.
But when you say it hurts here and, I'm hearing things, I'm seeing things, I'm thinking things, it's hard, especially in our profession, being man, first of all, right? The macho thing,
Mhm.
and then being a military member, and then like infantry guys, we are super not humble. We are the worst of the worst, man. We are the cockiest SOBs. We're, whatever.
No,
It's part of it
you
too. You
at
feel you need
all.
that. I guess
Yeah.
part of it too is like you gotta have a mindset because again, like you said, you guys are on the front lines. So
Yeah.
if you don't have that mindset or that attitude to say, hey, we're gonna take this hill, we're gonna charge, we're gonna do whatever, you're gonna have a lot of guys deserting or afraid to take that first shot or whatever. You're gonna think self-preservation first. So it's weird how and isn't that also a part of your training?
Mhm.
To kind of give you that kind of swag when you go in, or do you kind of come into it kind of already with that? I mean, how was it for going in? What you think your mindset was? What did the military actually train you for? And my larger question is up until the injury itself, because you said you went from kid in the hood in New York City to Italy and to all these places and whatnot. How did your worldview change in terms of how you saw the world, how you saw, because this is the gray area again. Oftentimes your soul stuff is black and white. They're the enemy over there and we're the good guys and whatnot. And I've talked to so many vets over the years and it's the same thing. It's kind of gray area, like literally. So talk about first the mindset that you had going in. What did the military give you? And then just overall on the way out over this 4-year period, how did it change you in terms of how you see the world and the sort of the whole geopolitical landscape? If you can tackle those two in that order.
Sure. I mean, again, going in, being the city kid, it was a really hard transition just mentally, like for me, if you said, "Oh, the woods," I'm thinking like Central Park. You know what I mean? Like, I'll be honest, terrible public school system in New York.
Right.
If you showed me a picture of like the forest of Pennsylvania, I'd be like, "Oh, look, the 1800s." Like, conceptually, I thought everywhere was like New York City.
Yeah.
I thought everywhere had a subway system and skyscrapers and all these things. I didn't know any other way of being, and so it was a very hard transition to suddenly be out in the woods and bugs and sleeping in dirt holes and all these different things. And although I'd been around a lot of gun violence in the hood, it was very different, firing rockets and grenades and machine guns and things like that. So I was very babe in the woods. I was very lost. I didn't take to it as easily as
So
a
you're
lot
talking
of
about, I guess, your basic training when you went, because I think you said you went to Georgia, right? You went to South first. Yeah.
Fort Benning, Georgia.
Mhm.
And so it was definitely a hard, difficult transition into the military. Now, I really fell in love with it. I really did. And it was horrible. It was terrible. I remember my drill sergeants saying, like, you guys fucked up. Like, that you came to this. Because they're like, we're about to go to war. Because remember, this is right before everything kicked off. And so they're like, and I remember them telling us, like we're going to be harder on you than we've been on anyone in our career. And it was out of love. They're like,
yeah.
you're going
They
to
got to harden
war.
you up. Yeah.
It's from a survivor
like,
training, right, Mike?
Say again?
Survivor training almost.
Yeah, I mean, it was this, and I mean, we hated them for it at the time, but I look back and I'm like, I'm so thankful that they did because they needed to toughen us up. We were going to see things and do things that they hadn't done in their career. A lot of these guys had come up during peacetime, and so they're like, it's our duty. Typically a drill sergeant is like, our job is to get you in, make you salute, make you shoot straight, and then push you out. But they're like, no, we need to train you for war. And so they beat the living hell out of us. And it was a tough transition. But by the end of it, I I was truly indoctrinated into the military. I drank the Kool-Aid. I hook, line, I wanted to get army tattoo. Like I wanted to, I was that guy. I still have, man. I should pull it out, but I have my basic training book. Like you graduate, you get a little book with all your pictures in it and stuff. And I've got something from the military that I had never had. I didn't come from a really good family.
Right.
And so it gave me a sense of family. It gave me a sense of purpose. It gave me a drive. It gave me a goal. And then, like you were saying, just from New York to Georgia. Wow. What a wide swing. First time I ever had, biscuits and gravy, right? Something stupid.
Oh, that's a Southern staple. I've
never had biscuits and gravy before. Was it country fried steak? Never.
Oh yeah.
Having that.
I got Georgia roots. My family's from there also. So so I know it well.
I was. But we say what you will. Leonard Skinner, the fucking Sweet Home Alabama.
Yeah.
The first time I'd ever heard it was at our graduation ceremony, and I went, man, this is good. Like, I like this. And like people were singing along, and I'm like, what are you? I'm like, I'm a Linkin Park kid and whatever, but I'm like, everybody's singing along. Like, this is catchy. Like, it was just so different from the world that I had known and grown up in. And so it really expanded my view then. And then next thing you know, I'm in Italy, and that changed my whole perspective on the world and how differently just Europe operates from the States, and then to be in Iraq, and being like, oh my God, like this third world country, and like the sewage running through the streets, and although it did give me some kind of New York City vibes in some of the neighborhoods, because you had like the wires going from building to building and things, and I was kind of like, it's kind of like home. And then going to Afghanistan later, which is like basically walking back in Bible times. Like they live as if technology in the world never happened. Like it's
like Iraq is almost like high tech versus Afghanistan. Afghanistan's even more primitive.
I would say like Iraq had infrastructure. It had like there's buildings and there's it's all third world countries, shot up, blown up, nasty. But like they had phones and TV and things. And I remember I'm glad I went to Iraq first. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. Like, because going to Iraq, I was very much like, oh my God, like this is horrible living. And then when I went to Afghanistan, I'm like, oh my God, like they don't have electricity. There's no wires. Like everything's mud huts.
Yeah.
Like it was, man, totally different. Totally different.
That was an eye-awakener for you, right, Mike?
Yeah, man. People like, and it's totally understandable, but like Iraq, Afghanistan, same thing. No, it's like
levels
saying
to this.
Mexico and Canada, like they're close, but they are nothing alike. They really are. And then just geographically, it depends where in the country you are, because a lot of times I'll say stuff and people, I was in the desert in Iraq, and I was in the city and it was different. Yeah, it's a big country, but even Afghanistan, we were in the bordering mountains where we had like 6 feet of snow one day.
Yeah,
like it's not what you picture,
right?
Sometimes in your head, and it can be, it's just wild. It's very wild to have experienced all that.
Yeah. So again, just getting back to just to sort of crystallize your global view. How did it make you feel about, I guess, where you came from, the United States, relative to the rest of the world, in living and operating in these different places? Did it make you more appreciative of what the United States had? Not just the amenities or the infrastructure, but also the people. What kind of perspective did you gain from that?
it's interesting because my worldview, obviously, as I progressed, kind of evolved and changed, and because my life was perfect, when it started, and then when going to Georgia and getting part of this, I was like, oh, so this is what a family is like, and oh, this is what like my normal diet was like Chinese takeout, pizza. They're like, oh no, like country fried steak and then like hearty foods and Southern foods, and then one thing that growing up in the ghetto, I was surrounded by all ethnicities, all colors. So that's something that I knew guys that were like farm boy from Kansas that ended up in the middle in Army, and they're like, I've never seen someone so black. It's like, like, well, we don't say that, but sure.
It's like the first day. It's like the first day college. Like remember that show back in the day, The Real World. It's like everybody came from, like everybody thought that everyone's from San Francisco or whatever. You put all these people together and whatnot, and it's like culture shock for everybody in that little space, even though we're all from the U.S. That is funny.
I guess when we, like me and Mike grew up in New York, to us, like seeing like a Spanish person walking down the hall or a Middle Eastern person, a black person, whatever, was common. But when you go down to the South, like you can vouch for more, Paul. Like, wait, that's a Spanish person. There exists? I thought they were a species.
Yeah, it's like I said, all ethnic. I grew up. My family's from there. I've been there. I lived there for some time, but most of my time I'm been in Jersey. So again, I get the multicultural, multi-ethnic. But again, it's just like when you're in a room and the guy's from Kansas, or the guys from Iowa, or the guys from again from South, but again in not the most integrated areas. Again, when those folks, you get all those folks together, it definitely creates an interesting dynamic.
Sorry, no, I didn't mean to interrupt. It's wild. Like one of my best friends when I was in was, when I say farm boy, I mean farm boy. Like tossing hay bales and milking cow. Like he grew up on the farm, and here I am, this like inner city kid, and we became the best of friends, and it was so empowering. Like, because you could have your cliques, right? You have the black guys over here and the Spanish guys over here and the white guys over here. But I mean, I can't speak for the military as a whole, but in the infantry, in my unit, like we were very diverse, and we were very, like, you would have the white goth kid with like the black super into urban rap and whatever, and then the white guy with the country music, and we're all just shooting the shit, and we're drinking, and we're having a good time, and occasionally tempers flare and things like that, but we settle all that beef. You throw on the boxing gloves, you settle that beef. But
absolutely,
again, as to answer your question, as I traveled, and I think Europe more than anything really opened my eyes into just, because again, it's comparable to the US, whereas like something like Iraq and Afghanistan, you can't
right. That's totally
But going to Europe, and like I took every chance. Obviously, after I survived Iraq, I was like, holy shit, I'm alive. I need to experience as much life as I can, because I know I was going to Afghanistan. I'm like, I might not survive that one.
Right.
Like I went to Spain, I went to Ireland, I went all over Europe. I traveled over Italy. I wanted to experience as much as I could. And it was wild just seeing how different Europe was from us. And again, we're raised to think, believe, oh, we're this superpower, which America by all means is a superpower, but we're not excellent at everything. We're not. And this belief that we're number one, like, most times we're like number 23, number 17, like, I saw things like, just as a quick examples, in Italy, in the middle of the day, if you try to go to a store or get something done, most businesses,
the siestas, right? The afternoon siestas.
They go home and they have lunch with their families. The kids come home from school and have lunch with the parents. Like, of course they have better home value when they're given that, and in some areas they're super progressive. Like, man, there were billboards with just tits hanging out. Billboards. And I'm thinking like, holy shit. Like, you can't just show tits, and they're like, tits are on TV. It's like part of the soap opera. And I'm like, what is happening? This is like, it's like, is this cable? They're like, no, this is they just have a healthy, like, they don't frown upon sexuality. They don't treat it like this dirty no-no thing. It's like, no, it's a part of whatever.
And it's funny you said that because a couple weeks ago we had a whole conversation about how sex is in Europe and Greece and everything. And it was like,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, that it's on
Austrians are
TV. It's in in Germany and what it's so there. I
like,
mean, I always looked at America as almost like we're kind of like bipolar. I think.
Yeah.
We're
like to get a
puritanical
prostitute-
on one end, but then we're hyper on the other end. There's no bounds. You just find pockets of things, but there's not like a national like you said in Europe. It seems like the identity, and it's not like they're producing perverted kids or
like,
these
here's a
these
better
kind of people.
example too. Your father takes you to a hooker to lose your virginity. That is very common. And like,
I can't speak for that, but
I can speak about that. I mean, like,
drinking age. There's no drinking age there.
Yeah.
Because they have a healthy relationship with alcohol. Like
Right.
I would always date locals because I'm like, I could have dated inside the military, but I'm like, hey, I'm traveling. I want to date locals. I always had Italian girlfriends, and like they would take me home for dinner, and like you would see kids have a glass of wine, and it's
integrated into the culture.
For it. They understood it. You never saw a drunk Italian because they knew how. But again, in certain ways, very progressive. In certain ways, very old fashioned. Like a girl lived at home with her parents until she got married. Like that's just a traditional way of doing things.
Right.
And boys went off and went to college and things like that, or went to work. And so it was just really interesting to see these kind of dynamics. I'll never forget. Like it was my first, second, third night there. Well, this guy's like, hey man, we're gonna go out to dinner. Like, come with us. I'm like, all right, cool. And we go out to this restaurant, and we're sitting there, and we order our food, and we're eating. And I remember looking over, and I see this like grandfather with his granddaughter, and they're having a nice meal. And I'm like, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And then she climbed into his lap, and they started making out. And I went, oh no, that's not what I thought it was. And I look over to the other guy, I'm like, eh? He goes, yeah, that's normal here. Like, because older men are considered to be able to provide for women. So they typically have younger, whatever.
Well, yeah, because we've talked about that in the space also about like everybody here wants to sort of date in their own age bracket, like the whole idea of age dating, like you marry, like they said, like there was some content creator saying like a man shouldn't get married at least until he's like 35 years old when he's kind of set in his career and established whatnot. Then he married the young 20 something or whatever, and then everybody freaks out about that. It's like, oh man, that guy's too old. He's a grandfather or whatnot. So it's like forget 30, 40 year age gap. Women don't even want to go like a 10, 15 year age gap when it comes to dating here. So yeah, so we're just it's just very different here. You're absolutely right about that. Yeah. And how we value things, I think also is
overseas
very different
is very, very common a date, 15, 20-year-old difference. And maybe more. It's common. And like people don't look at it different. Here it's like, what? You're dating a 20-year-old younger woman?
Oh, you're perv. Yeah, you're perv. You're pedo.
Pretty much,
I mean,
yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It is.
And then to finish that off, it's just going to places like Iraq and Afghanistan and seeing how they live and especially my first tour, just being very angry and like, I'll say it, like, wanting revenge, and then you get over there and you meet people and you realize the majority of them don't even know, like they don't know anything about us. They don't know about 9/11. They're just people trying to live their lives,
You're asking why you're here, right?
Yeah, and honestly, they didn't even care. Those countries have been occupied for millennia.
Yeah.
Like the Russians went in, the
Yeah.
Polish went in, like all these different, the French went, like everybody at some point or another has like tried to take over, and they literally, like their stance. It's so funny to me, like not the military, right? Like not the military, that was gone very quickly, but just the people in general were kind of just like, we'll wait it out. Like eventually you all leave. They're like, the Russians did it. All the people that have tried to occupy, they go, eventually they go home. Could take 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, but eventually you'll go home. You'll stop trying to occupy us and we'll go back to our way of life. Like they just didn't care. Most of them didn't care. And a lot of them were very nice. A lot of them, I really don't like to talk politics and religion and things like that, but I will say this. Bible people are some of the worst people I've ever met in my life, and they're usually the most horrible people. They're the most judgmental, whatever.
Good. Yep.
Now, I'm not religious, but if people were to actually live by the Bible, I think it would be an incredible thing. Love your neighbor, do for others, don't kill, don't steal, all these things. I believe in the message 1,000,000%, even though I don't think there's a guy singing on a cloud, pulling strings, whatever.
Right.
Fine.
Right.
The bad people that wage an holy war against us and use the Quran and use these things, if you are to really look at their teachings and really understand them, most of those people that really believe in the Quran and really believe in their God and Allah and all that, they welcome you into their homes and they go, I have this one pot of food, I want to share it with you. And it's because that is living by their belief that they are their neighbor's protectors. Yeah. And so I sat in living rooms and ate meals with people, and it's hard to be like, I want to kill you when
you're absolutely right.
We're having a meal and we're talking and understanding that they just want to provide for their children and they just want to live their best life, and all these dictators and warlords are making all these decisions and kicking up all this dirt. And it's a couple bad apples that are spoiling the bunch. And for the most part, they're just people trying to live their lives.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of my life also in that, again, you certainly have people who, certainly weaponize religion to subjugate other people. And that is something. And again, I'm one of those Bible believer persons. I know Grooming, I know he's Orthodox Greek, but we both agree that oftentimes, the way religion is used to judge and to dominate people and whatnot, and to wage war on other people, regardless of what the religion is. Yeah, it's a major power play. But most people, especially people on the ground, one thing I always notice the times I've traveled overseas or certainly just to another country, the peace of mind that oftentimes a lot of these people have. Like last time I went to Jamaica a couple years ago, and that was the first time I was there. And the thing that always got me was the serenity in the local people. Because we were staying in a resort and we got a driver. It's I just want to see Jamaica. Take us out of Disneyland. And I just want to see how the people live. I just want to see, what the locals are like. The average Jamaican lives on $30 a day, which isn't much. But you wouldn't know it from talking to them, and they're welcoming, and they're just they're just appreciative. But we're in the resort, and you hear people just complaining all the time. My drink isn't right. My steak isn't right. My whatever. We got so much stuff, and we're still not happy. You know what I mean?
Paul, here's the problem. As United States Americans, like I said, for a reason, because it's about buying the new Gucci shoes, buy the new Samsung TV, getting the new iPhone, get the new this, get the new that. You would care about the material things. When you don't have the money to buy material things, you don't give a shit. The only thing you care about is having a nice hot plate of food, a roof over your head. Hopefully the shower works half the time, because maybe if the power doesn't get turned off.
Yeah.
And even the shower, you have to turn the thermostat on to warm up the water. You gotta wait.
That's right. Yeah, they had the houses in Jamaica. They had these hot water heaters on the roofs, and they got to heat it up, and that's like your water supply. It's not just water on the tap, just like that. You know what I mean?
The way we live is very high end, to be honest with you guys. I'm sorry, Mike.
No, I said you're absolutely right. We're probably one of the most spoiled countries. We're number one in that for sure.
Like having automatic cars is a luxury. In Greece, 95% of cars are manual. Even power steering. We don't even have power steering. Now they start finally coming into Greece. But I'm using Greece as a reference because that's what I know. Is we are very spoiled. A lot of things, it's DoorDash now. Forget it. You don't have a restaurant has DoorDash. Some of them have delivery drivers. Some of them don't. Depends. You get lucky enough. It's so much, and people don't realize how lucky we are.
Yeah.
just want to give a shout out to the chat again. Thank you guys for joining us tonight on the gray area. Just make sure as you come in, just hit the like button. As you come in, but even more so if you want to subscribe to the network, the Black Man Unfiltered Network. Again, consider becoming a member of the network as well. And but again, we appreciate the crowd coming in. We especially appreciate because we got a lot of vets certainly in this chat. Again, Dalmani Green Bean, salute to you. Big Ann 11. We got Marcus is in here tonight. So again, we got a lot of vets. I mean, we got vets throughout the network. Again, we've had kind of similar conversations with them as well as far as their military experience.
And
but
of course, we got who popped his head in. Mike's favorite person, King Smith, is in here.
King, shout out to the King. What's good, sir? What's good, sir?
I thought you said real veterans. I'm sorry.
No. Please, no vet beats tonight. We love all you guys.
Listen, I'm not. Listen, before I come up there, I don't want you guys going at it. I'm breaking and separating you guys. I don't like it. It's hard enough to separate you guys when you.
Air Force.
And the Army Navy guys is tough. The Air Force guys, they always getting heat up in here, man. I don't know. Shout out to the Air Force. Shout out to the National Guard as well. But if you really want to seek to go at it, talk about National Guard or the Space Force. That's what you're going.
That's
awesome. But thank you for taking us on that journey. I want to move to another part of this conversation. So again, you're back. You talked about, the recovery by 2007. The physical wounds have healed, but you're still working on the mental. But at the same time, you've been able to have sort of like this second half of your life. Again, you're married. You have a career. You're doing positive things in the space and whatnot. So as you're working on your mental health, trying to heal, how were you able to build freedom? Because some guys don't take this path. You know what I mean? Some guys, they stay in the war or they stay in the field. They keep going back there, or worse, some guys take their own lives. I mean, it's I'm happy that, again, the military is paying more attention to mental health than they used to back in the day, but it's still a struggle for a lot of these guys. We all heard about the homeless vets and all that, but you were still, and it's not like you came from affluence. You didn't come from a necessarily a good place. You came back to the States and whatnot, but you were able to have this second half, and I can kind of relate to that. I was in a auto accident in my early 20s, and certainly it was a long recovery to come back as well. But I was certainly able to have a better second half. I think the first half taught me some things that allowed me to have this better second half. So let's talk about how you were able to pull things together. Where did it start for you in terms of this road to I wouldn't say recovery, because again, I appreciate when you say you're still kind of recovering, but how were you able to craft the second half of your life? Where did it start for you? And then how were you able to sort of build momentum from there?
I mean, it's a great question. And it's a very long answer. So I'm not going to give you because
as well. Yeah. So we had the first half of the show. This is the second half. So that was a good first half. It was a rough first half. Now we got the second half. So let's kick off for the second half. So go.
And I think too, I mean, to appreciate it, like you're talking 2007 to 2024. It's a very long road. And so the highlights, the high notes, when I got out in 2007, I had no idea. Like I was 24, 23, 24. And they're telling me like, hey, that's it. You're medically retired. They're like, bye. Like there's they're much better now, but at the time they were
I remember.
They were literally like, sign this document. I was like, okay, why? They're like, because you're retired now. And I was like, wait, what? And they're like, here's the door. And I was like, well, what do I do? And they're like, nothing. You're gonna collect a paycheck and just go sit on your couch and enjoy it. You earned it. I'm like, because I didn't die. Like I don't feel like I earned it. I feel like I just didn't die.
Right.
And so I didn't know what to do. I kind of hid away. Me and my wife bought a house in Pennsylvania.
Well, let's back up there. I like to know, how'd you because I know for me, one of the best things that happened to me was certainly meeting my wife. We're in our 28th year marriage. That did a lot for me in terms of my self-image and whatnot. So again, don't just skip over that. That's a pivotal thing. So how did that come together?
So if I
I will
tell,
be careful what you say. She might be watching.
no, she's. I mean, yeah, she's the best thing that happened to me. Honestly, I wouldn't be
Yeah.
where I'm at today if not for her. I only skipped it because it's a long story, but also it's like every time I tell the story, people are like, "Oh my god, that should be a movie. That should be a book." So again, I'll in the
Give us the
interest
cliff notes.
of
We'll talk about that in the
time,
next one on our relationship. So we'll bring you back. We'll talk about that one. But just give us the cliff notes version of it.
I was, funnily enough, engaged to someone, an Italian girl, while I was over in Italy.
Right.
And when I got injured, I got sent back to the States, and I didn't really have a family. You know, I wasn't close to any family and everything. And so they're like, "Well, who can we bring to you?" And I said, "Well, bring my fiance." And they're like, "Well, we typically don't do that. Like, we only do that for spouses." I was like, "Well, that's all I have." And so they pulled some strings. Now, luckily, she was Italian American. She born and lived in Italy, but it turned out her dad was a soldier, so runs in the family. So she had an American passport, so they were able to get her over. She shows up, and now right away I could tell she's being super weird. And in my mind, it's obviously the love of her life has almost died, and I looked horrible. It was bad. It was very bad.
I can imagine.
And so I'm thinking, like, of course she's acting weird. Like she's struggling. She's adjusting to this new way of life. And after a couple days, couple weeks, like we were arguing and whatever. And finally one day she's like, "I gotta go. I'm gonna go fly to visit a friend or whatever in Kentucky," or something like that. And I was just like, again, I'm all hopped up on drugs and prescribed in the hospital drugs. But I'm all on painkillers and all that. So I'm just like, "Yeah, baby, whatever. I'll buy your ticket, whatever." And so she left, and then I like it kind of was just like, "Wait a minute, where is she going? Like, she just came from Italy, and now she's leaving." And then I tried to get a hold of her, and I couldn't. Long story short, I get a buddy of mine still in Italy. He calls me, and they're like, "Hey, we just saw her on the base." And I'm like, "What?" And it turns out that she had been cheating on me while I was gone. Very classic. And so she was going back to see her man.
Right.
Which obviously, when I got a hold of her, I was like, "Yeah, you don't come back. Like, we're done." Gotcha. And I'm like, and I look back at it now and I kind of laugh because I'm like, man, how shitty you have to feel as a person. Like, it's bad enough to cheat on someone, but then like the person you're cheating on like dies and comes back to life, and now you have to take care of them in the hospital.
Couple times, that's right. Yeah,
it's kind of a weird thing. Anyway, so it's funny. I only mentioned that because my whole life I'd been a serial dater. I obviously grew up in a very broken home, and I put way too much into the importance of having a significant other. And like, I professed my love to every girl that gave me any kind of attention. It was sick, very bad. Yeah. Just sex and love and all that was just all a big mumbled just mess in my head.
Right.
So I was just like, this devastated me in a way where I was so angry, and I was recovering, and it was a bad thing. And so I made this declaration in my head where I'm like, "That's it. I'm done with women. Like, I don't think I'm ready to be gay yet, but I'm done with women for right now." And so I was like, I for the first time in my life, I was single. And it lasted like, I think, a month and a half, 2 months, something like that. And then I had an aunt, like not even a blood aunt, man. Like, this is how shitty my family is. None of my blood relatives ever came to visit me. But I had an aunt who had married into the family. Right. And I guess cared enough that she showed up and visited. And, she saw me. I was super depressed and everything. And she's like, we need to take you out. Like, that's the way. And I'm like, I'm in the hospital. I had like one arm was in a cast, one arm was in a sling. I'd lost like 80 pounds. Like, I was 200 solid muscle. Yeah. And I was like 125. I was a skeleton, and I was sunken eyes. I looked terrible.
Wow.
And she's like, we need to just get you out of the hospital and whatever. And and she's like, we got to get you out. And I remember, like, she tells the doctor, she's like, hey, we're gonna go for a walk. He's like, all right, but just make sure you stay on the hospital ground. She's like, yeah, no, of course. You know, you always got that crazy uncle, crazy aunt. She was the crazy aunt, for sure. And so next thing I know, she's shoving me into a taxi, and we're going out to, like, I'd never even been off the property at that point.
Right.
And she took me to the mall. And I remember she kept nagging me. She kept going like, you know what you need? You need a good woman. You need a good woman that it'll change everything. And I was like, dude, I'm not women. No. I like, look at me. I look like death. I'm not in a place for that. And she just kept pestering me and pestering me. What about this girl? Oh, what about this girl? Hey, you should talk to this girl. And I was like, look, if I talk to the next girl that you point out, we drop this shit. And she goes, okay, deal. Right. So I'm thinking like she'll just pick the next girl. We'll get this done with whatever. But no, she goes silent and we're just cruising. Finally, we get to the mall and I can see her. She's like looking around and go on one level and then go on another level. And now we're finally level. And I'm going to date myself here, but we went to a CD store. Physical media.
Oh, yeah.
So we went to a CD store. I was like, I'm going to get the newest Linkin Park thing because I was like, whatever.
Right.
And I remember we're walking in the door. And she grabs me by the shoulder. She goes, her. And my wife is gorgeous, gorgeous girl. And I was like, in my prime, cocky, in uniform. I'm thinking if I'm at 100%,
you'd have a tough time bagging this one.
I would have been nervous to talk to the girl.
Yeah, right.
Like not even the regular, in dress uniform with medals and all this shit. I would have been nervous to talk to this girl.
Yep.
But because I didn't give a shit, and I was also high on painkillers, I was like, fuck it, let's go. Yeah. And so I walked up to her and I'm like, I swear to God, my opening line was, hey, come here often? Like, I was like, I got nothing. And she just gave me this very deer in headlights stare. She's a little brown thing. And she starts speaking in Spanish and saying, like, I'm sorry, I don't speak English and whatnot. Now, I grew up in a Spanish household. Mm-hmm. I understand Spanish fluently and I can speak it pretty well.
Right.
I just didn't want to bother because in my mind, she obviously speaks English and she's just pretending because I've had friends and family that have done it. You're pretending to speak only Spanish. I'm like, who doesn't speak English in America? But I'm like, she's obviously pretending. So I'm like, okay, I get the hint. You want nothing to do with me? Nice to meet you. And I turn around and walk back. And I went to my mom, like, hey, I tried. We're done. And because she knew I was done after that, she's like, oh, hell no, we're not giving up. So she grabs me and drags me back to the girl and says, hey, don't you want to talk to my nephew? He's a war hero. He's in the hospital. And like, she just starts hard selling me on this girl. Wow. And she's like, big eyes, like, oh my God, I can't believe these people are talking to me. And I'm like, dude, you're embarrassing the shit out of me. Like, stop it. And so Jenny, my wife, starts talking back in Spanish and saying, like, look, I'm sorry, I don't speak English, whatever. Now, my aunt is from Nicaragua. So she goes, oh, no problem. And starts, boom, and starts telling her in Spanish, like, oh, he's a hero. He's this, he's a man. He's amazing. You should give him time. You should give him a number, blah. And I'm listening. I'm just like, this is so awkward. And so she goes, which is the funny part. She goes, you guys should go on a date this weekend. And Jenny goes, I'm leaving the country in 4 days. Because it was like a Monday. And so she's like, I'm leaving on Thursday or Friday, whatever. She's like, I'm leaving the country. And I'm like, all right, strike two. So she doesn't speak English. Strike two. She's now leaving the country. Right. And then so my aunt goes, well, give him your phone number. Oh, I don't have a phone. I'm like, oh my God, she's making it so clear. She wants nothing to do with us. And lo and behold, everything she said was true. She didn't speak English. She didn't have a cell phone. She was only visiting the country for like 4 days. She had literally got there the day before. Was on a like what they call a travel visa, vacation visa.
Right, yeah.
Visiting friends and family that were in the States, and then going back to her home in El Salvador. And so, ignoring all that, my aunt's just like, "Well, you know what? We're going to the club tonight. You should come with us." And I went, "Wait, what? We're going where tonight?" She's like, "Yeah, we're gonna go out, and you should come with us. It'll be fun." I'm like, first of all, it's a who goes out to a club on a Tuesday?
I can tell you who.
I'm like,
his name is CQ.
Yeah, like, apparently so. And so, long story short, my aunt just wrote on her phone number and like shoved it into her bag and was like, "Call us, we'll pick you up, whatever." And I'm like, we're never gonna hear from this girl again. Wouldn't you know it? A couple hours later, it was funny because we said like, "Oh, call us by 6 so we can, figure it all out." 6:00 rolls around, 6:37. And I'm like, "Look, this girl's not calling. She's not coming." And so my mom's like, "You know what? Fuck that girl. She wasn't even that cute anyway. So this is what we're going to do. Screw it. We are going to go out to the club and we're going to find you a girl." I'm like, no. And while we're arguing about that, phone rings. It's her. She goes, "Hey, sorry. I'm just getting back in." Literally, because I use the phone at home because I don't have a phone. So she's like, "I just got back home." She's like, "Do you guys want to go out?" And I'm like, "Holy shit." And we went out and we had a blast. We had a great time. We went out. We didn't do any real dancing or anything. We just sat and talked.
You still got your arm. Yeah, you got your arm in a sling, and you got the other one in the cast. Your dance moves kind of blocky at that point.
We had some drinks and we ended up just talking like almost all night. And at the end of it, we exchanged emails because she did have access to email. And this is where she surprised me, because through the night we had talked a lot about, and I said, "Oh, I'm at Walter Reed and I'm in this." And she asked me a lot of questions, and I wasn't used to people giving me a shit about me, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so I was very taken by this girl who was asking me a lot of questions. "Oh, yeah, I do physical therapy in the morning." And she was asking me about my schedule and like, what do I do? And looking back at it, I should have been like, this is a deep cover Russian agent trying to get information or whatever. She's like, "Oh, what do you do during the day and where you at and this and that?" And to understand, she was living in Virginia, or she was staying in Virginia, and I'm in like literally in the heart of Washington, D.C.
Right.
At Walter Reed. The next day, I'm waking up, I just got back from physical therapy. And like I literally closed my door and I'm like going to change whatever. And I hear knock, 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 which is weird because no one ever knocked on my door.
Right.
Again, to understand this part is that the first 6 months I was in the hospital, I was inpatient care because I was so badly damaged. But shortly after that, there was such an influx of guys. They needed beds. So the most critical guys stayed in the hospital. And me, since I was able to at least walk around, they put me into a building right next to the hospital, which used to be a hotel, but it became like an annex hospital. So my room was in this like hotel style. But I get a knock on my door and I open it and it's her.
Wow.
And I'm like, "What the fuck are you doing here?" And she had taken like a metro train to another metro train to a bus.
Yeah, no, that's
then
it.
got off and then walked like 2 miles, got to the gate, which this was a military facility.
Right.
So she didn't have access.
Right.
She's like, "Well, I'm visiting someone in the hospital." And they go, "Okay, well, we need to see your ID." And she's like, "I don't have ID. I'm not from here." So they literally took her passport and held it at the gate because they're like, "We don't know who you are." So they held her passport. And then she somehow found my building, which is a bunch of buildings, somehow found my room, and somehow got there. I could have been anywhere at that point, and just surprised me. And I was blown away by this woman. And she stayed with me, and we talked. Again, we talked for the whole day, and we ended up spending every single day together for that entire week that she was in the States. And then eventually, like I said, on Thursday, Friday, she flew back home, and then we were just emailing, and it just blossomed into this relationship. And she would come visit every couple of months, and eventually I was like, "Man, I'm obsessed with you." And then kind of how that ends is that I was about to go to surgery again, and this was going to be happening like on my birthday or the day before my birthday, whatever. And she's like, I want to be there for you, because she knew I had nobody. And she's like, I want to be there for you. And I said, okay, great. And then she calls me crying. She's like, oh my God. I said, what's wrong? She goes, my dad took my passport, and because he found out that I was been traveling to go see you.
Right.
And she goes, no daughter of mine's gonna be some American, whatever. And she's like, he won't let me see it. And I was like, well, what's the issue? Whatever. And she's like, well, he says, if you care that much, he wants to meet you. I said, well, he can come too.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, no. And basically she said that, like, unless I come there and meet the family, that we have to break up.
That's that old school that you're talking about. Yeah. Old school. Yeah.
And so I told her, all right, tell him I'll be on my way. And I literally, and I mean, this is, again, super stupid. I was known for making bad decisions, but I told because again, even though I was in the hospital, I was still military. You're still active. Right. And so you have like people that are in charge of you. And I told them, hey, listen, I need to go home for the weekend. I had a death in the family and I need to go. And they're like, all right, well, where are you going? I said, Pennsylvania. And they're like, okay, but make sure you go straight there. You do the thing, you come back. No problem. Went straight to the airport and flew to El Salvador.
Wow.
Spent 3 days there and met her family and spent the time with them and fell in love with them. And they fell in love with me, and her father blessed it and gave it approvals. And funny enough, I fell asleep on the beach. Not a good idea, and got so burned, like second degree, third degree burns.
Oh my gosh.
And so I got back, and this isn't like
wasn't that hot in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, it was February. It's the winter. And they're like, what happened to you? And I was like, it was a very sunny day. It was just very sunny. And obviously, like, they knew I had done something. They couldn't figure out what, but they knew I'd done something. And I remember I had to go to the hospital for like burns, because I was like, I'm burned real bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, so lo and behold, a couple months later, I was just like, look, you are the best person I've ever met in my life. I want to put a ring on it before anybody else gets a chance to. And we got married, and she's been my ride or die since day one. And it hasn't always been pretty, and it hasn't always been perfect. But
so I got a couple of statements here I got to tell you. Number one, depends who you talk to. You talk to his wife. She says, oh, he stalked me. And the other way, they'll go back and forth. I hear this story, two different versions of it. My second statement, and I have told you this before, Paul, there's two men I always say that they're my role models for a good marriage. Is yourself, Paul, and my buddy CQ. He has one of the best marriages I've seen. Like, he still loves that woman and worships the ground she walks on. I'm not even being understatement. I'm being serious.
But I first of all, shout out to the auntie for her persistence. So I mean, look, I'm a believer, and again, things happen for reasons and whatnot. People come into your life for a reason. People come into your life for a season. And again, the fact that your aunt showed up at the time that she did, as persistent as she was, and your wife was there, your future wife would be there and whatnot, and the way everything that worked out, I truly think things just don't happen by accident. I hear a lot of guys in these spaces talk about, well, the women of today or this or that or whatever. Is like, look, if that's what you seriously want, and if your intentions are good, I mean, there's plenty of good women that are still out there. But sometimes you may have to go off the wall. You may have to do something out of the ordinary to meet them. Even as crazy as just going up to someone and just saying hi, at least you're doing something. But put yourself in position to fail and be willing to fail enough times. Again, your aunt was like, look, if this doesn't work, let's go to the next one. And I think a lot of people get so caught up, like, if you're looking for all the stars to align to say, okay, like to God to say, okay, she's the one. Sometimes God may be speaking to your auntie, you know what I mean? So, and you still got to do the work. So I'm just hearing this story, and I'm just reminded of just all those lessons that I've learned over the years. That again, for so you have your wife, but now talk about this. Now you have her, which I think is obviously a major block in your life. Now let's flesh this out. this other half. Tell about the rest of your career and the things that you've been into and the things you've been doing since then, the family and everything. So just kind of put a bow on all this, because this has been an incredible ride, and I think the ride is clearly not over. I mean,
I have told him 100 times.
Both of you guys are much younger than me, so the ride is still continuing here. So let's put a bow. So talk about the second half.
Well,
right?
So
we're
coming. I've been telling him for years and years. I'm gonna tell him one more time live. You gotta make a movie out of your life, dude. And when you do go make it big, I just get 1%. That's what I'm asking. 1%.
Well, everything starts. But everything starts with the book, right? Everything starts with the book, and the book becomes a screenplay, and then you sell it to a company or whatever, and then they make the movie. So just your life as a book might be the place to start in terms of putting your memoirs together and whatnot, and seeing where that goes. That could be certainly a worthwhile project to do as well. So I'm gonna write that up.
Believe it or not, I've been very fortunate to meet a lot of incredible people. One of them was a writer who we sat down and kind of fleshed out what would be a story, and shopped it around a bit. And at the time, no takers, no big deal. And then another good friend of mine, again, through just random happenstance, is a TV show scriptwriter and has created shows and has written, products for it. And he goes, one day we were talking, he goes, would you want to do something with me? And I said, okay, let's do it. And so we created a show, loosely based. It's not a direct adaptation, but a lot of it's taken from my life and what happened. And so, like, elements of the injury, the comedy, meeting the girl, all that stuff, elements of her in there. And we shopped it around, man. And there was some interest at the lower levels, and worked our way up to, like, we met with, Ben Stiller's production company and Seth MacFarlane's production company. And there was some interest for a while. And then a couple of different things happened that kind of put it on the back burner. Like the Hollywood strike happened and a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
So who knows? One day, maybe. That's to just put that to the side.
Just remember, I said here 1%.
You want this cut? I gotta get my cut right.
I know where you live. Trust me.
So to answer your question, when I was eventually medically discharged in 2007, I was really lost. And having Jenny, my wife, was incredible, and she kept me every step of the way. She was like, we'll figure it out. We just keep moving one step in front of the other. And so we ended up going to Pennsylvania and buying a house, like, in the woods, in the mountains, far removed from everybody, no neighbors. Like, my neighbors were bears and turkey and deer. And I hid away. For a number of years. And I was on a slow decline, but it was picking up steam. And it kind of like this idea of like circling the drains. I never pretend that, like, I never got to a point of suicide or anything like that, but I can easily see that I was on the path. I was on the trajectory to be a statistic. And I was just very fortunate that at that point in my life, I met people like Pete. I met another guy named Ed, who kind of became my mentor. And I got involved in things like Wounded Warrior Project, which I proudly wear, which is an organization that was able to get to me and to get me help and to get me resources and to put me around other people like me.
Yeah.
Because that's the biggest thing, is this feeling of like you're alone and this isolation. I'm the only one, and suffering in silence and all these things. And it's very toxic. It's very cancerous mentally. And so little by little, I started kind of opening out of the shell. And I remember, like, hanging out with Ed, and I would, we'd go to these, like, well, we're going to go to a ball game or something like that. And it's paid for. So I'm like, again, growing up ghetto, I was like, you telling me free tickets to a ball game?
That's right. Let's go.
They're going to have food too? What? Okay, I'll be there. And so I would just kind of stand in the background. I wouldn't talk. I just watch people and talk. And I watch Ed, and he would just talk to people, and he would just open up and, oh, what'd you do? And, oh man, that's crazy. And, oh yeah, I did this. And then, share these devastating stories about things he saw and things he did in service. And I was just like, oh my God, you're supposed to keep that shit in here. You're not supposed to let that shit out. You're supposed to push it deep down until you fucking kill yourself. Like, that's just what you're supposed to do. And he's like, he told me one day, he goes, man, you got to let that stuff out. It's going to eat you up. And I was like, I don't know how. And he's like, well, we call it emotional baggage. He's like, it's like, it really is like carrying weight. And when you tell your story, when you share, you are literally handing that weight and saying, hey, can you help me lift this? Can you help me carry this?
Yeah.
And I was like, that is the most hippy dippy bullshit I have ever heard in my fucking life. You are crazy. And just one day I was like, I gotta prove him wrong. And I shared like a little morsel about, oh yeah, I went to Iraq, Afghanistan, and did some stuff. And I met another guy, and we got to talk about, oh shit, yeah, I was there in 03. Oh yeah, I was there. What part with you? And little by little, I started opening up, and I felt this weight being lifted off my shoulders. I felt this, I don't know, it was just this peace all of a sudden. The voices got quieter, and so little by little, I just started opening up more and more and looking for opportunities to connect with other warriors. And I was like trying to learn. I was like studying him like he was a lab animal. Like, how are you like this? Like, how do you exist? And it was wild because over like 2 years, I spent as much time as I could with him, and again, hanging out with guys like Pete, and just trying to regain a lot of what I had lost, or what I felt I had lost. And next thing I know, I had people looking to me, and I had people asking me like, oh, how do you do that? Like, how do you share? How do you talk? And I was like, wait a minute. Like, all of a sudden I was becoming a mentor for people. And I'm like, I didn't plan on it. I didn't know what I was looking for, but it felt good to connect, and it felt good to share, and it felt good, like an opportunity that, like, I know how much I was suffering, and I could start to see that in other people. And I realized that's what Ed had saw in me, and I start to see it in others. And so I would start to reach out, and just over the course of years, I mean, it make it sound so easy, like this is a night and day thing, but it was years of slowly building that and getting stronger mentally. And I was seeing therapy, and for a while I was taking medication and things like that, just to help me in any way I could to get forward. And I got to a place finally where I felt good physically, and I felt good mentally. And I don't know, I had this epiphany one day where, I was dealing with like a lot of survivor's guilt. I lost a lot of friends. And I didn't feel like I deserved to be happy, and I didn't deserve, they're dead, they're gone. I don't, how could I, why do I get to live? Nobody cares about me. Guys lost it, like left wives, left kids, and I'm this nobody who nobody gives a shit about. Why do I get to keep going? And I had this epiphany, and it was, again, talking with Ed, and they wouldn't want me suffering. They wouldn't want me to give up my life because they didn't have theirs. Like, they would want me to live my best life, right? Like, they died serving the same way I would have. Like, would I want that for someone else? Would I want someone to suffer for me? And it's funny because it kind of came back in full circle later, in that I found out that there were guys who looked at me like that. Guys I served with, they were like, bro, like, CQ's out there and he's, whatever. I can't ask for help because he's a guy who needs help. I mean, I had a buddy who was like, he's like, I only got shot twice. He literally said these words to me. I was only shot twice, man. You were shot way more. Like, you need the stuff, not me. And I'm like, how fucking stupid do you gotta be? And I realized, like, oh my God, that's that thing. That's that thing that I had. And so just over time, I ended up becoming a mentor, and trying to help as many people as I could. And that was a part of my own recovery, right? Helping others was helping me.
Absolutely. Yep.
So I ended up, we started 2 support groups for veterans, for wounded veterans, and just got into a number of things. And then I just had, like I said, I had that epiphany of, I have to live the best life I can for me, for my wife, for my family, for my friends, for those that can't. I need to just be the best version of me. And I can honestly say today that, like, my life is better post injury than it ever was pre-injury.
I can relate. I can absolutely relate to that.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, like I just started saying yes to everything. Like, do you want to take a free golf clinic? Yes. Do you want to? Yes. Yeah. And a lot of things I didn't really enjoy, but I like the bucket list. I did it. I did that.
Put it out there.
Mountains. I've skydived. I'm a certified advanced open water scuba certified diver. I've driven, a stock car around a NASCAR track. I've done it. I started doing stand-up comedy just as kind of like just to do it.
Right.
And I did fall in love with it and really liked it. But a lot of things, starting a podcast, starting a show, it just became like, why not try it, do it, experience.
I do remember when I first met you, CQ, is you start. That's when you start opening it up, if you remember. And it was some things like I knew better to kind of pull it out you, but I let you come out naturally, if you remember. And it was like, I know you want to say more, but something was holding you back. But over the years, you're open and more and more. Our friendship got closer and closer, obviously. But I do understand what you're saying. When I first met you, you were like, I'll tell you this, but that's all I'm telling you. You don't need to know any more than that. And I'm glad you opened up. I'm glad you're doing all this stuff because it makes you the person you are now. Like, I look up to you all the time. I come to you with advice all the time. Hey, dude, what I do about this? And Shane goes like, So like, he's not only my best friend, he's my mentor too. So he mentors a lot of people. And I like, between the wife, the kid, and all the mentor and everything you do, I don't know how many hats you got behind you right now. I don't see how big the closet is. That's hats. You know what? I gotta give you credit for it. That's all I can say. I gotta give you credit and salute you for that, bro. It's like I don't know when you sleep. The biggest question is.
I'm always tired. That's the secret. I don't sleep.
Gotcha. Man, I mean, I am. There's so much I got out of this conversation tonight, and again, especially when you go in, and I trust grooming. I trust Peter with this. This is really the gray area. Was kind of his idea. He kind of brought me into. So we were on panels on the BMD network, and so he brought me and said, "Oh, hey, I want to do a show with you or whatever." And I said, "Sure," And we've learned so much. Certainly, not only getting to know each other better, but getting to know other people also through this space. And I'm just looking at this conversation. There's just certain things that I can relate to personally, but also just some sort of life lessons that I've learned throughout this. You talked about the broken home that you came from. Again, check. I got that. I came out. In fact, I just buried my mother, my last parent, a couple weeks ago, and again, very dysfunctional situation. But at these different stages of my life, I've always had people kind of came in at the right times. Not that I was seeking it or what have you, but they came at the right times to give me the support that I needed. And then at the same time, been able to encourage other people. But just going back to your early military, the one thing I also get is you talked about, again, the reason for the military, that support, that sense of family, that sense of brotherhood, that sense of people coming together for common cause. And I was certainly, for a lot of, because especially I'm seeing, especially with a lot of young people, there's a lot of people who are like living like lonely lives, or young people don't trust people. In fact, we were just talking grooming the other night. We had a guest on, and she was talking about how she her lack of trust in other people, like she doesn't get involved in a lot of things. And I just encourage people, find something that you're passionate about, and then find other people who share your passion. Get into that community. And again, we as human beings, we are communal beings. We're not supposed to be isolated. And so whether it be military, whether it be wounded warriors, whether it be, a podcast or whatever, don't sit on the sidelines and just suffer in silence. Get out, meet people, say the stupid thing. but actually just get out and do some things that will allow you to get into the spheres and circles of other people. And then just see how that works. It's a start. It's a place to begin. So again, with you, it's the military certainly gave you that sense of family and whatnot, the diversity and the different foods and everything. Yes, I mean, obviously, coming out of it, certainly your recovery. Again, you met that woman, and I know what it's like. And like I said, I know what you're saying. That woman can really make a difference in your life. And then when you were struggling with things, again, other people, see, that's why, and again, I know you say you're not a religious person, but I just believe that from my faith tradition, God puts people in your life for reasons. And in turn, he then uses you to be a motivator and inspiration to other people. I just buy into that. Yeah, I'm definitely not the hardcore Bible thumping guy who wants to just kill the infidels or whatever. I'm not about that. I'm like, Jesus is God, God of love and humanity and love, like you said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. There's so many different ways we can do that. And so just the people who came into your life that gave you at least something to go by, say, let's start. So a lot of people people just won't start certain things. Just get out there, do something, say something, go to that class or go to that meeting and then see what happens. I didn't really start feeling good about myself until when I got to college and I joined organizations where I could apply. I was kind of techie. I was kind of nerdy at the time. I knew computer graphics, desktop design. I joined an organization and say, hey, you're good at this stuff. Hey, work with one organization. And then that started to make me feel good about myself because I didn't have a positive self-image growing up. And so just being able to not only work with the group, but then also showing my value to the group and then having that group depend on me, that helped to build me up. And then when I found my wife, when it was like, hey, someone really cares about me, that lifted me up. And then the career I've been able to build in the IT space over the years, and I look back, it's almost like you're starting, like if you like a race, right? Like a NASCAR race or whatever, like you feel like you're starting in row 11. But over the years, you've been moving up in the race as the race goes on, and you're passing people. But the fact that you're constantly applying, constantly stretching yourself, you look back and say, hey, you know what? I am doing something positive. I am better than, what people thought used to tell me about myself back then. Even my own family members. I grew up, my brother would always say, man, you ain't S. because again, I was nerdy, I was klutzy, I just didn't have a lot of, self-confidence. No one was really building me up. But just over time, I was able to, simply just constantly applying myself and building on victory after victory. It just allowed me to have a much better self-image. So now, like I said, I do find myself similar to where I mentor people and where I, and especially, younger guys. I'll be 55 in a couple months. But I'm talking to a lot of guys in your guys' age brackets who got kids who are like 8 and 12. My youngest just turned 21. And I'm just like, so I'd say, how'd you get through, man? I got these kids and how'd you get them to 21 or whatever? And it just became just a natural thing so I got a lot of millennial guys who are sort of in my sphere that I just, hey, let's meet for coffee. Let's meet whatever, anywhere you want to meet, anywhere you want to call. Hey, let's just have a conversation. And so again, I feel useful taking the pain that I might have had as a youth and fighting through all that through my 20s and my 30s, finally starting to feel good about myself in my 40s. And now I'm at a space now where I'm the OG, which is crazy to me because I don't feel like it half the time, but people say, yeah, you the OG. So I became a mentor, even if I wasn't necessarily seeking it, but I realized the value in it. So just everything that you've been sharing tonight, it's just been, yes, like, this is what we need. And with all of the negative, all the garbage that's out there, this is what we need to be sharing with people, that regardless of your circumstances, that you can certainly have a turnaround. But again, look for the right people, and I do believe people are placed in your life for a certain reason. So I've just been, this has just been incredibly inspiring. And I just pray that, you continually to be used by whatever force or being or entity that you believe in, that you continue to be used to help other people, to help other wounded warriors and whatnot. Now, I also want to talk to you about the one thing, because I always hear this about, certainly about vets and whatnot. It's very easy oftentimes for a person who's never served to say, well, thank you for your service. And I want to hear from you, the vet, what is the best thing that someone who hasn't served, what's the best thing that we can do? And talk about, again, your wounded warriors. I've heard about the organization, I've seen fundraisers for it and whatnot. Talk a little bit about that. How can people help? How can people get involved? What are some things that you would recommend for the person who hasn't served, like myself? What can we do to let vets know that, hey, we really do appreciate you guys, and it goes beyond just lip service?
That's great. Well, first of all, thank you for everything you said. I'm glad that it touched a nerve, and I agree with everything. I get asked a lot, because they're like, well, because people do care. People do care, and they'll say, I don't know what to say other than thank you for your service. And the truth is, a lot of guys don't like it. A lot of guys don't like it. Thank you for your service, because first, it rings untrue for a lot of people, because it's like saying bless you when you sneeze. Like, it's just this reactionary thing.
Right.
There's no intent behind it, no meaning behind it. And then some people just don't like it because they don't know what to say, or they don't feel like their service. Oh, I'm a cook. What service? I'm making eggs. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they don't feel like they're contributing to this greater service. The thing that I've asked this to a lot of vets, and I think the consensus of instead of thank you for your service. I mean, if that's all you have the time for, throw it out there, whatever. It's a God bless you. You know what I mean? It's the same. It rings the same. But
yeah,
I would tell people, like, if you're with someone you think's a veteran or military member, and you say, "Oh, did you serve?" Like, yeah, I did. Oh, what branch? Oh, Army, whatever. Oh, nice, man. What you do while you were in the service? Yeah, I was 11 Bravos, infantry, and served. Oh, wow. You serve anywhere cool? Yeah, I was in Italy. I went to Iraq and Afghanistan. Oh, cool, man. Well, hey, man, I appreciate what you do. Thank you. I hope you're good. And in that small interaction, it has the same meaning of a thank you for your service, but for me, you actually asked about my service. You cared. There's a difference by just blindly saying thank you for your service. You don't know my service. You don't. I could have been in prison for because I chopped off some dude's head, and you're thanking me for my service. So but if you, again, you don't have to go into the whole I started out in this and that, but just a general, what branch you were in, oh, cool. Did you go any cool places? Yeah, I went to here and here. Man, that's awesome, dude. I'm glad you're home. Hope you're doing okay. That to me, the people that do that always blow me away, and I'm always caught off guard because I'm not used to it. And that's
right.
It's not because I'm used to, oh, thank you for your service. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, appreciate it. And so but someone genuinely caring and wanting to give thanks, that means something.
Yeah.
Barring all that, it's always nice when someone buys you a drink. Just saying. Every time I've been at a bar or I'm waiting for a flight, the best thank you I've ever gotten, I was sitting at an airport and I was boarding a plane, and I forget why, but it was there weren't a lot of people. I swear there was maybe 15, 20 people getting on this flight. And this guy looked at me. He's like, "Hey, man, you a vet?" I said, "Yeah, branch Army, yeah." It's like, Purple Heart, because I was wearing short sleeves, so you can see my scars. I was like, "Yeah." So, cool, man, cool. And he walked away, and I saw him go talk to the people on the thing, and then he came back. He goes, "Hey, are you on this flight?" And I was like, "Yeah." Weird question. Can I see your ticket? I was like, sure. And I handed it to me. He looked at it, and he's like, and ripped it up. And I'm like, I was about to murder this guy. And he's like, that wasn't the right ticket. And I went, what? That was my ticket. I printed it out myself. Of course. He goes, no, this is your ticket. And he handed me a first class ticket.
Oh, wow. Dope.
He's like, I just used my points to upgrade you. Just wanted to say thank you.
Class. Yeah.
And I was like, fuck. I was like, I didn't know what to say, man. I was just like, thank you. And so that was the best. That was the best thank you I've ever gotten. I think it was like a 40-minute flight or whatever, but still first class. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
That. But yeah, so that's I feel like if the intention is there, because people always want to say, no, I really mean it. Well, then if you really mean it, ask them about their service.
Yeah.
Like, let them tell you about their service. If you don't have the time for that, don't even bother with the thank you for the service. Because it's, I think
Great
it's less
point.
value than a God bless you if you sneeze.
Right point. And again, to have that kind of interaction, it does require, again, because all of us are kind of in our own selfish spaces. Yeah. So again, it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't have to be a long conversation. It doesn't have to be a 2.5-hour podcast that we had tonight. It could certainly just be 5 minutes, or you're en route, you're on the same bus or train or whatever. Just that extra, just to take your attention off yourself for a few minutes, just to get to know somebody, and then it comes off you. That 5 minutes can mean like 5 hours in the mind of the person that you're doing it for. So just another lesson for us as well.
Because he kills on, and this, but most of my friends are veterans or some type of military, and most of them goes like they're wearing a hat or something. I go, oh, you serve? Like, yeah, what'd you do? And I started having a conversation. Next minute, I'm like, yeah, we gotta go. We've been here for an hour bullshitting. And Chris Tanto, a great example. And when he signed my book, and we start talking, he goes, can you have a beer later? Like, yeah, let me buy the first round. We have bullshit. 2 hours later, we're having a few beers, and we're talking about the whole Benghazi incident. And after he signed my book, of course, I'm like, this was cool, actually. And just the little things go a long way for these guys. Don't even, even saying, hey, you know what? That was pretty cool what you did out there. And that would just go a long way versus say, thank you, because they hear it all the time. I think the delivery is wrong sometimes.
It becomes road. It becomes road.
I was going to say, a lot of people go, well, I don't know. How do I know if a person's like, if they're wearing a pin, a badge, a jacket, a hat, they're okay talking about their service. I mean, I'm wearing infantry this and airborne this and that, but I don't want to talk about my service.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, dude. You're rocking all that.
All over. Yeah.
Say something about your service.
It's like a tag. It's like a tag on. Like, talk to me.
I tattooed my unit on my arm.
That's it. Absolutely.
I'm perfectly okay talking about it.
Absolutely. Well. Again, this has been a pleasure. Grooming. You wanna put a bow on this conversation. I would certainly, again, for those who are in the chat tonight, really appreciate you guys coming out, especially all the vets who are here. And I would certainly highly encourage that you go out and certainly share this content and send the link to some guys who might be going through. Like, you got vets out there who are like, they don't know, what to do or who to connect with or whatnot. We need to certainly spread the message about Wounded Warriors and the work that they're doing. And so, so yeah, definitely, this is definitely a show I think worth sharing. If CQ can be an inspiration to others, then I think that's be definitely worthwhile. But grooming, again, I've had a blast. Thank you for putting this together. And
it's my pleasure. I've been trying to get his ass on here for a while now.
He's a busy man, as I understand.
Yeah, don't remind me.
Yeah,
next week he's going to be even busier. Trust me.
Yeah. Absolutely. And just as a side note, just as far as your pop culture warrior, definitely I need to check out more content, because again, I'm me and Gloom, him, but we're fans. We are. I'm into all the stuff. I see you got the events, Captain America shield back there. I see you got the Avengers, Star Wars, Star Trek. I'm into all the stuff. The only thing I haven't gone to yet, I haven't gone to Comic-Con New York, and I know Goon was talking about trying to get tickets to go next year. So I know I need to be in the place.
You need to get yourself tickets. I'm already set.
I thought you you're reneging already. You said you would get the tickets or whatever, and then you
all right.
So get the tickets, and I'll recompense you for the cost of the ticket. But okay, I look at you as an insider, so you can get the best prices.
I know somebody who can get me press passes. Don't worry.
See, that's what I'm saying. So you so you guys hook it up, and I will. Anyway, so again, Comic-Con 2025. I intend to be in the place.
on a rerun or now, go to Pop Culture Warrior, hit the like and subscribe button on him.
Absolutely.
Or we're coming after you. Oh, we
Absolutely.
will. We will find you. We know where you are. We know where you sleep. We will make you hit the subscribe button. Don't you say a word.
If nothing else, man, I give away a lot of shit on my show because
Yeah,
over the years I've collected so much stuff. In fact, somebody's over here jealous because I'm gonna be giving away this. Is it? Where is it? Is this for those Metal Gear Solid fans?
Oh wow,
this is
cool.
Everybody.
So there's like David Hayter, Vanessa, Phil Lamar's on here, Doug Stone, like all the voice actors.
Hang on. Counter offer. See how it will look back there as my background and everything.
You gotta win it.
You know, your best friend. You know, he's a Patreon member. He's your Ryan Dye. I've been knowing you for about 20 years. It's not working, is it? It's not working, is it? Right. No, it's not working.
Now, CQ, just side note. Have you always been like a collector? Have you always been? Because I know grooming. I know he talks about. He goes to the bitch. He'll drop four bills on collectible stuff. Have you always been a collector into that stuff?
In one way or another, I have. It's weird because like for a while I was big into like I had movie posters. And then it became comic books, and then it became just little autographs things, and like so it's evolved over years, collecting different types of stuff, and then now it's just kind of all things pop culture. But like when I travel, I go to new states or new events, like I'll get pins. I have a pin board over there too that has little pins of all the places I've been, and
right.
So yeah, like I now have to be very, very careful because I'm like running. All those cabinets are full of things. Plus closets over there full of things.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a coin. There's one of the coins I made.
I like the arrangement. Looks very nice.
So it's a lot. Like I have an Avengers poster over there signed by Robert Downey, a Deadpool poster signed by Ryan Reynolds, a Jay and Silent Bob signed by Kevin Smith, and comics, and like every wall is covered with stuff at this point. I'm running out of space. So.
Awesome. Definitely looking forward to it.
I would say, if you remember, content. Was it 3 years ago? Was it 4 years when we bought the lightsabers? And I dropped a good G on, I think it was mine or something like 800. It was 800. He looked at me like, "You seriously gonna drop that?" I looked at him like, "You dropped more things." I mean,
that one back there I got for $50. it's just value. Right. Fine value.
Yeah.
800.
I don't know. So I might be going Carbolite. If I don't own these sabers right now, but I might have. I got to start small. So I may start with Carbolite and build up. I'm not ready for Vader's Vault or Saber Forge yet. So I'm not there yet. I'm still paying bills, man. So
Vader is the most expensive saber. Like we went to Saber Force actually, and they're pretty decent and not bad. But Vader Force is like the number one saber you can get out there. But anyway. So he was CQ from Pop Culture Warrior, one of the greatest guys I know, sweetest, humble, a husband, a father, my best friend. Don't make me take everything back now. And obviously, one of the, what else can I say? He's the greatest guy I know. He's my mentor, my best friend, and everything. So please do us all a favor. Go around to the channel, hit a sub and like. That's all I'm asking you guys to do. Absolutely. Except that, you got anything else today, Paul? Or that's it on your side?
I think we're good. So again, he is CQ. He is Grooming and Reviews 101, aka Sparta, aka Peter, aka Panagiotis. I am Mr. Bennett, and this has been the Gray Area. Enjoy the rest of your week. Stay safe. We'll see you next time. Take care, guys. Have a great night.
David, wake up! You're sleeping again on us. Great
Black
producer. Wake up! I'm gonna put on blast. He doesn't wake up in a minute. This happened a couple weeks ago, by the way.
It did.
He fell asleep. He literally fell asleep behind the Corollas. He was drooling and snoring and everything.
I mean,
absolutely.
What are you gonna do?
There you go. This is the after hour show. The OT. I guess that we're in. But
Let me see if I can get him on the phone really fast.
yeah, to close this out.
Yeah.
We'll share since we have a minute.
Mm.
When I've done support groups, a lot of people will ask, what should I do, or how do I get to a position like where I'm at? And I always give the same two pieces of advice,
Mm-hmm.
which is first, do something outside of yourself.
Absolutely.
And a lot of that is like volunteerism.
Absolutely.
Homeless shelter, soup kitchen, Habitat for Humanity,
Mm-hmm.
clean up a cemetery, whatever, doesn't matter. But being of service outside of yourself, I think, is such an important thing.
100%.
And then, especially for a lot of veterans who you have a lot of stuff that you can't get out, is find a creative outlet, find a hobby, whether it's painting, whether it's music, whether it's comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Find a creative way to take all that stuff that's inside of you and let it out.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody who's done those two things has went on to be very, very successful. And
I tell you, it's we, like I said, grooming. We were literally, again, we were just talking about that earlier this week. Service is it was
oh no, Thursday.
Thursday show. Yeah,
yeah, so, Thursday.
A few days ago. Yeah, it's just such a thing, especially for those who are kind of introverts. If you have difficulty making friends and whatnot, again, there's nothing like shared service, shared sacrifice. And you build, and again, trust is something you have to build over time. Everyone wants friends right away, but trust is built. But it's oftentimes done again in that act of service. That you can really it does so much for your self-image, and again, and sometimes just seeing again how fortunate you have it, because even here sometimes it's like, oh man, my life sucks here and all this kind of stuff, but again, get outside yourself and see how other people are living, and you realize, hey, it's like, hey, my life is what it is, but what we always talk about, walk a day in another person's shoes or whatever. It's like, look, be grateful for the life that you have, and try to make the most of it, because you're probably the only one who can do that. So, so definitely, I'm always encouraging people to, make yourself useful in your circle, in your space. Find those things that you can find a passion. Find people who share that passion, and then get the ball rolling there. But yeah, absolutely, I think service is a tremendous way to certainly build camaraderie. And I'm always driving things, certainly with some of the guys that I know, to try to get out of our comfort zones and do things for the service of other people. People's like, well, how much is this going to cost? It's like, don't worry about it. Let's just do it. Right. So look, I'll front, like, no one has to.
You know what I think it is?
Yeah.
A lot of times, a lot of people worry about the dollar signs behind what they do. They do something fun, excitement, and something like I told Secure on my 40th birthday, I want to jump out of a goddamn plane. I'm like, I want to skydive.
He's trying to get me to go with him though. So that.
Oh, I'm not going. Trying. You're going. This is gonna be a kidnap.
My wife doesn't let me out of a plane.
You think I care about your wife? Like, I'll speak to her. Don't worry. Me and her.
Yeah. You do that. Yeah. That's gonna be when you next time you come out here and see us. That's gonna be a very interesting conversation when you guys have it.
I'm not going to go far, but I'm going to try. But my point is trying to get like people are scared to drop all the money to do their adventure. Just drop it, because you can't bring it with you when you die. Simple as that.
Absolutely. Shout out to Marcus Antonio. So I volunteered for a homeless shelter before, and I've done work with the VA in the past, and Boys and Girls Club also. Absolutely. Great job. And again, there's so much more that that you can do. Young guys, you guys got a lot of there's a lot of options out there, and I always think about connecting, because again, I really and you probably seen some of this also, Secure. Again, young guys, I'm talking about, your Gen Zers and whatnot. A lot of them are like directionless in terms of things that they could be doing. And it's you guys. I think I'm too old. I'm not trying to do like Mr. Miyagi and the teenage or whatever. The 35-year-olds, y'all got it, and the 30-year-olds, y'all mentor the teenagers and the Zers and whatnot. I'll take care of the sort of the guys hitting 40. So the midlife crisis kind of guys. I'll talk to those guys or whatever. But let's just keep this. Let's just keep this. This energy going. But there's so much that even for our young people that they could be doing. Like I said, you don't have to join the service. I mean, AmeriCorps. There's all kinds of organizations that you can serve in, missionary work, whatever. Just to see again how the rest of the world lives. It definitely gives you a perspective, and sometimes it gets you out of your sense of materialism. Or my life only has value because I have material things. That's just not true. That you have a lot of things that you can give to the world, and again, the one half of the world is just waiting for the other half to say hello to them. So so we have to encourage that sense of people just not always being consumed with their own exploits, but. Yeah.
So let's do the old school way. We're just gonna close our windows out because David is probably sleeping.
We're gonna just drop off the stream. We'll end it. I think the last time that happened, I looked at the time. It was like 6 hours or something. so he might have been out for the night. But again, CQ. I definitely look forward to seeing you again, and hopefully in the near future, wouldn't mind meeting you in person. So you're still in the New York area, or you're
in the DC area.
DC area, okay. I got some relatives down there. I got some relatives in that area. So definitely, and I know grooming. I know you were planning to go down to DC sometime soon, right?
Yeah, it's actually this week coming up. I'm gonna be away for 3 days.
Okay,
and I'm gonna be driving him crazy. Most likely, I'll make sure he loses the little hair left he has.
Send some pictures.
We will be streaming on Friday, is it right?
Yeah. So Friday nights we do this thing called FTX, Friday Night Tabletop Exercise, where we just get together a group of guys and we play board games, we play card games, dice games, whatever. And it's live streamed, so it's meant to be that circle, that campfire kind of. We're hanging out together, and the chats are kind of part of it, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
No, those are fun. I've seen how a lot of those work, and sometimes it's nice just being a fly on the wall, seeing how that stuff goes down. It's a lot of hilarious conversations that come out of that. So, but again, hopefully, looking forward to meeting you in the future. Again, best of luck to all your endeavors, and you take care of you and your family. Y'all have a good one. Grooming, I'll holler at you later in the week, and all right, you guys have a great night.
All right, guys, have a good night, and I'll see you guys later.